So did anyone try and count how many mitzvot, how many commandments there were in this week's reading? It's hard to follow. Did you get a number?
Anywhere between 9 and 14, it varies every time you count.
It varies every time. So anywhere between 9 and 14, it varies every time you count. It is an interesting idea that this section of Torah is called the Ten Commandments. And if you, excuse me, if you look at the sheet that I prepared, and you can see how different traditions, different religious traditions, who do use the same Bible, look at this a little differently. So for those who in English it is called the Ten Commandments, it's very important to them that the first commandment actually contains a command. You shall have no other gods before me. But for us, the first of the Aseret Dibrot, the first Diber, as it were, says, Ani Anochi, I am the Lord your God, who has taken you out of the land of Egypt. It is not a list of things you must do and must not do, but rather the beginning of the divine revelation of mitzvot, of which we don't just have 10, we have 613, and even that, depending on how you count them, everyone who has counted them has a slightly different list than everyone else who has counted them. So it's a little hard, but our tradition says we have 613 mitzvot, not just 10. And it comes from a covenant, a brit with God. And that's why the beginning starts not with, you shall have no other God before me. It starts with Anochi, I. It starts with God. God comes in front of us and says, I'm connecting to you. I'm your God. I did this for you, and I will continue to do things for you, and in turn, I'd like you to do this. It's a very special relationship. It's not the same as, the relationship we have necessarily with the province of Ontario, which says, here's the speed limit, don't steal things, whatever, or we're going to take you to court. It is a promise back and forth between the two parties. Additionally, if you look at I'm not sure why this is done, but if you look at the Catholic list and you look at the Protestant list, we also shift some things around. So we have honor your father and mother shift a little bit because of the problem of having that first one as a commandment. But I want to get off that chart for a minute, and I want to look at the text underneath. Shuv ma'aseh b'goy echad sheba lifnei Shammai. A non-Jew came, someone from another country, another community, came before Shammai. Amar lo, Gereini al manat shetilamdeni kol haTorah kula, kishe'ani omed al regel echat. Teach me the entire Torah while I stand on one leg. Now, you might have some very good balance, but the entire Torah is a little long. Shammai, who didn't really have patience, he's kind of known for that. Shammai, who didn't really have patience, not only shoos the guy away from him, but pushes him off with he has a ruler. He's a builder, he has a ruler in his hand, and he pushes the guy, get away from me. Okay? The man then goes to Hillel and says the same thing. And Hillel responds, Amar lo, Da'anach snei lechavrech lo ta'aved zo hi kol haTorah kula. That which is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. Do not do to your friend, your fellow person. That's the essence of the entire Torah. And this individual says, okay, and then converts and is supposed to have been, a very pious person. He says, now go and study, go and learn. Because just knowing also is not the end. The Torah doesn't stop when we finish reading this parsha, or we finish reading those dibrot, the Torah continues. And I've shared, I'm not going to go into all the details, but I've shared with you the golden rule because I think it's important to note that every community, and this is certainly not an extensive list, every community has a version of the golden rule. And some may phrase it in ways that speak to you better than others. I happen to like our version because it isn't that which you want done to you, you should do to other people, because maybe you don't care if people yell at you. Maybe you don't care if people are rude. But if something hurts you, that's something you should make sure not to do to other people, no matter how minor it is. When I was in high school, I worked as a cashier in a supermarket. And so we had to, as part of our job, go and put all of the things that people put in the wrong spots or left back on the shelves. And I didn't mind when people brought them up to the front and said, can you put this away? I'm not taking it, whatever. But it used to really annoy me that we had to walk the aisles and pull things that were put completely in the wrong spot, especially if they were refrigerated. That would bug me. So I specifically now, if I decide not to take something, we'll schlep back. It's not that the supermarket's so big, but we'll schlep back halfway across the supermarket to go put something away, because that was something that annoyed me. It doesn't necessarily annoy someone else, and that's not a preach, everyone should go and do that. That's just my personal interpretation, for me, of this particular piece. And it's minor, but it changes the way I think about the world. We stood earlier today, and we stood last week as well, for a piece of the Torah. And there's a teaching from Rambam who says that we shouldn't stand for those pieces. And the weight of tradition is not with him, because we do stand. And not only do we stand, but I would say every shul in this city, every shul in this province, across the world, when we reach the Aseret Dibrot, when we reach the Shirat Hayam last week, we stand and we reenact. Because Judaism is an active religion, not just reading it in a book, but standing up and saying, yes, I take on these responsibilities. I'm here to make this covenant with God one more time. But Rambam says, don't stand. And he says that because someone might interpret that this piece of Torah is more important than all other pieces of Torah. And surely he's looking at other religions around him and saying they have taken this and interpreted what's really important in the Torah, these 10 things. And they've changed the way they act. But we have 613 mitzvot, and no one is important than the other. And in fact, I would say one of my favorites is actually above us here. One of my favorites comes from Micha, not a specific keep kosher, keep Shabbat, do this, don't murder, don't do that. But rather, what does God require of you? To do justly, love people, and walk humbly with God. And if we can take that, not necessarily the standing and the reading of this, but the trembling and the Yirat Shamayim, which we translate as fear of heaven, but it's not fear as in I'm afraid, that's poched, but being in awe of the world around us, in awe of the divine spirit in our world, in awe of the fact that, yes, it's February and it's really cold, and the snow, I noticed as I walked through the cleared sidewalks that the piles were here, and there'll be more snow this weekend. But the awe of the fact that the leaves have started budding on the trees in February, even here in Canada. So I hope you can take that with you as you wander back out into the cold this weekend. I hope that you can take that warmth and the idea of that with you as we go forward. And I hope that our learning together will bring some good into this world. And perhaps, as we have this idea that learning helps heal the world, maybe it'll help bring home our hostages and all who are captive in some way.